All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of my mailbag series where I answer your photography questions. These are open to anyone. You can ask me on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, in person. Come up to me at the airport and say, hey, I have a photography question. People do. One time someone just asked me, hey, what ISO do you use? And I was like, what? So if you're new here, my channel is dedicated to all things photography from the perspective of a full-time working professional photographer. And this channel is aimed at helping amateurs and pros improve their photography skills. And this episode is sponsored by me, by my online store where I have prints. I have a variety of presets you can choose from that will not make you a better photographer, but they will add some pop to your images. I also have a variety of online one-on-one coaching packages to choose from. You can check all that out at Ask Mott by Justin Mott or just follow the link in the description box below. All right, let's dive right into it. The first question is coming from Lucas Tran Images, and his question is, when you do a photo shoot on a Leica camera, do you edit the photos or do you keep it SOOC? I didn't know what that meant right away, but I guess it means straight out of the camera. Never straight out of the camera. Now, the files are nice out of my Leica cameras. I shoot with the Leica M10D. I also shoot with the Leica SL2S, but I never do because I like to tweak them. I like to add a little pop to them. Now, I wouldn't say that my images are reliant on post-production. I don't like to do that. I like to get things right in camera, and I don't believe that an editorial image especially can be saved in post-production. I think it has to be a good image, a good moment, and then you could enhance it just a little bit. Now, I come from a background as a photojournalist. So, for example, the shoot that I just went on for the New York Times, I shot with my Leica SL2S. Now, that's going to be very, very minimal color correction in Lightroom afterwards. I mean, I'm talking just adding a little bit of contrast, making sure the white balance is right, maybe a touch of clarity, and that's about it. Now, those are the limitations for me and for that publication. For my personal work, I might do a little bit more to the color, but in my editorial, my personal, anything considered documentary, I'm never retouching, like adding things or taking things out besides dust spots. Now, for commercial work, for my Mott Visuals work, sure, I send it off to a separate retoucher to get rid of things that clients don't like. It might be outlets in a room, it might be scaffolding on a construction site, it might be a whole assortment of things. So it really depends. But to answer your question, no, I pretty much never deliver my images to my clients. I never really publish my images straight out of the camera. However, I probably do less than 30 seconds of retouching per image for my editorial work. Again, that's just my personal preference, and that comes from my background as a photojournalist and my work in editorial photography. So it's quite different for personal, editorial, and for my commercial work. I hope that makes sense, and thanks for your question. The next question comes in from a former mentor student of mine, Jesse in Thailand, and he says, Justin, do you use autofocus on the SL2S? I don't use autofocus on it because I don't use SL lenses at the moment. Now, I might go with a Leica 24-90 soon for some of my video work, and then sometimes when I just need to shoot quite quickly, I need to get a variety of images in a short period of time, it's nice to have a zoom lens. I am really a prime lens person. I bought the SL2S to use with my Leica M lenses. For most of my assignment work, most of my commercial work, most of my work in general, I use manual focus. So that was quite appealing to use my M lenses on the SL system. So I enjoy that. However, I probably will use autofocus from time to time if I'm trying to capture an action shot. If things are happening really quickly. Sometimes I'm doing an animal story and the animals are moving quickly, so I might need autofocus. But still, most of the time, I'd say 90% of the time, most of my work, I use manual focus. I just do it well. There's nothing against autofocus. I just don't need it. And also, I will say the SL2 series, the autofocus is not fantastic. It just isn't. It's not like how it is on a Sony. However, I do expect that to change on the next iteration of the SL series, the SL3. When that comes out, I expect a big improvement in the autofocus. But for now, I don't use it, not because it's not great, but it isn't, but just because I don't need it much. So I hope that makes sense. The next question comes from BI1412, and it says, how to take photos with depth and telling a story through photos. Yeah, the shortest answer I can say is time. Time planning your story, planning what your subject is or your theme or what your story is about, the narrative, how you want to tell a particular story. Then not only planning what your story is about, but how you want to tell that story through images. And that just takes a lot of time. This is something that people tend to overlook. So if you're doing a story, for example, for me, when I was doing my story about the northern white rhinos, it took a lot of time to plan and see like, okay, if I'm going to go all the way to central Kenya, how much time do I need with them? And I want to spend as much time as I can, because the more time I have with my subjects, the more opportunities for moments are going to arise, the more I'm going to understand the situation, the better I can anticipate to capture those moments with nice composition and in good light. And then just the more time I'm there, it's just more opportunities for pictures in general. So the best advice I could give to anyone out there that wants more depth in their image or in their images or in their photo stories is to spend time and just be patient. I say this over and over again on my channel, probably every episode it comes up, but that's it. There's no secret sauce. There's no shortcuts. Time. In order to capture moments, in order to get depth in your image, you need to put the time in. The next question is, do you use a UV filter with your Leica lenses? Yes, I know this is a debate with a lot of people, like, why put another piece of glass between your beautiful glass? I don't know. I'm not like zooming in to be able to tell the difference. Maybe the quality is different. I just haven't seen it. I just care more about protecting my investment in my glass. So if I'm buying a $4,000 Leica lens, I want to protect it. And so I just put a UV filter. I put a good quality UV filter on there. I just like to have them on there for protection. I don't use lens caps ever. Anytime I buy a camera, lens cap goes right in this box. It goes away in storage. I never use lens caps. It's just one extra thing to take off, one more reason to miss a moment when it happens. I just don't like having them around, clinking around in my bag and having to worry about them, where to put them. So none of my lenses do I ever use lens caps. So like one of the first things I teach in my workshops, like, take your lens cap off, throw it away. So yes, I use them and I don't use lens caps. The next question is Leica 35mm Summilux or Summicron? I think that's a great question, and I think my answer will be applicable to like all lens ranges, 35, 50, 75, 90, all that. So for me, in general, I typically buy the best of the best because, especially with M series lenses, there's not a lot of technological changes happening through the years. So I'm going to get my money's worth with these lenses, but that's me as a professional that's using these lenses constantly. So what I do is, for the lenses that I know I'm going to use quite frequently, especially 35, if you follow my channel, you know that's a favorite of mine. I'm going to use that a ton. So yes, I want to buy the Summilux. The Summicron's still a fantastic lens. I just like shooting at 1.4. I like shooting wide open. F2 is still a great low light lens, especially if you're coupling it with a Leica SL2S, because it's great in low light, so you don't really need that extra stop. But I like the look of 1.4. I like the separation I get with my subject. So what I would say is, like, if that's your go-to lens, invest in it if you can afford it too. I mean, I'm never one to say, like, if you can't afford it, don't do it. However, I would say, like, if you have another lens that you don't use as much, like a 75 you only use sometimes, or you only use a 50 sometimes, and maybe you save some money there on a Summicron lens. Maybe you have a lineup of a few Summicron lenses, and your big hero lens that you use most of the time, like me, that's the 35, but that's changed a little bit. I've been using the 50 more as well. And then maybe you go the Summilux. I'd also highly recommend buying used lens. If you're in a reliable market, there's a lot of great options here in Vietnam. People tend to buy these lenses and don't use them much, so you can get some really good deals. Of course, it comes down to trust. I think for a lot of people, a nice prime lens kit, or affordable, I mean, not really affordable, but we'll say affordable for Leica, would be like, get the Summilux version of your favorite lens, whatever that is, the lens you're going to use most of the time. Get Summicron and used versions of the secondary lenses. If you also need a wide angle at 21 or 24, or for portrait lens, maybe you don't do a ton of portraits, so maybe a 50 or 75 Summicron lens will do. So that's what works for me. Again, I have no idea what works for you because I don't know your budget. I don't know what you shoot, but that's the way I look at it. That's what works for me. All right, that's it for the questions today. Thank you guys for all the questions that come in. You can ask me on Instagram. Just add the hashtag AskMott, or just tag me at AskMott. I'll do my best to answer questions. I pick a few every week. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to check out my online store where I've got prints, I've got presets, and I've got a variety of one-on-one online classes to choose from that'll help you improve your skills as a photographer. People of all levels of photography, interested in all genres. And lastly, don't forget about my Northern Vietnam photography workshop in March. There's a few slots left. Last chance to book. Do it. It's a workshop of a lifetime. I'll put a link to everything in the description box below. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to have a wonderful day.